Good morning. This is Bob Iacino along with Mike Arnold from Path Trading Partners, and this is an AM Path Chat covering the FX markets for May 17th. Well, I mentioned it yesterday in the afternoon Path Chat covering the futures markets, but the Comey memo is still the biggest thing in the news cycle right now. It is actually the first of these couple of, let's call them President Donald Trump crises, that is kind of moving the markets, the dollar taking the brunt of it. Dollar traded over 111 against the euro. You can see it on your screen right here. Gold rallied and dollar yen declined. So the yen gained strength against the dollar. Stock markets moved a little bit lower overnight, but didn't quite reach 1%. The worst performer was the S&P actually, which was down 0.6% as I record this. So nothing, again, it's the first market moving thing to come out of the White House as of late. So it's something that we'll be watching, but not something still that is terribly market moving. I think we're going to have to get something that actually gets bipartisan impeachment conversation going, which that's not happening yet. Still just from one side, and really nothing would affect the markets from that perspective. Real wages dropped in the UK. Unemployment fell to 4.6%. That's the lowest level since 1975. But regular wages, adjusted for inflation, dropped 0.2% in the first quarter and 0.5% in March alone. This kind of backs up Governor Mark Carney talking about the UK consumer having challenging times ahead and being cautious with any sort of rate changes. Crude oil recovering a little bit overnight, trading about 48.90 as I speak to you. That's up about 0.5%. It fell a little bit later yesterday on the EIA's estimation of 122,000 extra barrels of crude oil coming out of the U.S. this coming month. Important on the calendar today, consumer credit in the U.S. New York Federal Reserve is going to release first quarter household debt and credit report. The last report showed total consumer debt in the U.S. at $12.58 trillion. That was just below the all-time high that was reached in 2008. Other things that happened or are happening today: wage cost index in Australia was unchanged, 1.9% versus a 1.9% estimate, and the previous being 1.9%. But their consumer confidence fell 1.1%. It was down 0.7% last. Employment change in the UK to go with that unemployment rate: 122,000 jobs added, 21,000 were expected. So that was a pretty big beat, but most of the focus was on that wage index. Eurozone CPI year over year, the April final came in as the April preliminary did, 1.9%. So nothing new there. Core also 1.2% was which is what the estimation was. U.S. mortgage applications fell 4.1%. Now, coming out during the rest of the day, as I mentioned, we've got that household debt and credit report. We've got the Department of Energy crude oil inventories. I mentioned the API yesterday had an unexpected build of 800,000 plus barrels, a draw of 1.8 million barrels in gasoline, but a build of 1.8 million barrels in distillates that kind of canceled each other out. And then later on tonight, you've got Japan's GDP quarter over quarter and annualized. The annualized will be the important one. That's expected out at 1.8%. I'll probably talk about that again this afternoon in the afternoon Path Chat. But other than that, let me turn it over to Mike to let you know what he's seeing on the charts. Mike, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Euro US dollar continued to push higher. You can see yesterday pretty much closing at our 110.93 level. Still looking for 111.34 as the next level higher projected, and then we don't have any other projections until we get to the 112.33 to the 112.48 areas. Once we can get a little more price action, we can refine some GAN levels higher. If we turn around and pull back, that 110.93 is going to be key, then followed by the 110.78, then the 110.64, then nothing until the prior breakout zone, which comes at about 110.19 on a bigger pullback. Over to the pound. Caught yesterday on the rotation zone, now is pushing above the trend line. Next major target up is the defining point for the trend line, which is 129.88, and then the 129.89 area prior highs. If that is broken, we're watching for a potential run to 130.67 higher. On a pullback, watch for key support around 129.11, followed by 128.80 area. And if that's broken, we'd be watching for about the 128.65, followed by the 128.33. Over to the US dollar, Japanese yen. See closing yesterday pretty much on our gain cluster, 112.81 area, dropping further today. So on a continued down move, 112.03 to 112 even is going to be very key support. If that is broken, 111.81, then 111.65. On a rally back up, we're going to watch for minor resistance right around 112.46, and then the significant resistance around this 112.73 to 81 area. And if that's broken, 113.02 area. Over to the US dollar, Swiss franc. Big drop yesterday and then continued to push lower. Hit our first GAN projected level, 98.26 earlier today. If it continues lower below that, 98.13, then 97.95 are the next lower levels. On a move back up, 98.50, followed by 98.58, and then really nothing until the 98.87 area. Over to the Aussie US dollar. Found resistance at our declining rotation zone, heading lower today. On a further push down, 73.81 is next key level, then followed by about 73.63, then 73.47. On a move back up, minor resistance around 74.13, followed by 74.29, and then very significant resistance up around 74.34 to 74.36 area. If that is broken, you could see 74.54 as the next projected level higher. US dollar, Canadian dollar. I talked about this very sloppy double top, which would eventually take it down to the potential of the 134.81 area. Found some support at our key GAN cluster prior breakout zone here, coming in right around the 137.75 to 135.87 area. So on a move back lower, that's going to be very key area. If that is broken, next major level down is 135.40. And then below that, we have about 135.28 and then the 135.08. On a push higher, some minor resistance right around this 136.28. Very significant resistance right around this 136.54 prior breakdown level base of the sloppy double top and hooking over 8. So that's going to be a very key area on a rally back up. And if that is broken, you could potentially see a move at 136.90. Finally, over to the US dollar, Mexican peso. So far, an inside bar compared to yesterday. Pretty flat for the day. On a move higher, we're watching for some resistance right around yesterday's highs, 1875.68, then followed by 1876.98, and then nothing up until we get to the declining rotation zone, 1883.38. On a push lower, some support coming in about 1861.13, then pretty major support coming in at about 1855.97 to 1854.27. And then we have a rising trend line coming in at about 1851.98. Those are the key levels we'll be watching for today. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you guys for watching. Again, watch the news cycle today, because as this Comey memo thing heats up, he's going to be pressured to testify, and he wants to testify in public. So once that's announced, you'll see things slow down, but you can see on Mike's charts that things are starting to roll over against the dollar. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll speak to you in the next Path Chat.